What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're taking a closer look at the M3 Macbook Air. I've had this for exactly 2 weeks, so I got it when it first came out. I've been using it as much as I possibly could. I really try to get through basically a lot of the daily stuff that I use, so whether that's kind of like internet browsing, you know, a bit of editing here and there with Photoshop, Lightroom, kind of just like using all of the main apps that I regularly use with any of my other machines. First off, before we jump into the video, I just want to say welcome to the channel, welcome back to another video. And I want to jump into one thing before we jump into the specifications and kind of like the detailed review. The main question is that you probably have while watching this video is, should you upgrade or should you even buy this machine in the first place? So should you upgrade? You know, should you get this machine? It really depends where you're coming from. And I feel like I say that in a lot of the videos, or I feel like I bring that up as a question and I kind of give somewhat of a similar answer every single time. But it really does depend where you're coming from and what previous machine you owned or still own. If you're coming from, like, I would say any Intel based MacBook, so they're rather old at the moment. I would say they're pretty much like a few years old. Now, I know I used to have a 2017 MacBook from Apple. It was an Intel based laptop and it was okay at the time when I first bought it. I remember in 2017 I was super happy about it, but it really got outdated over time and it really got outperformed and it was starting to be really slow. So I ended up getting the M1 Pro MacBook Pro. This time around we're talking about the M3 MacBook Air. I really do think this is the sweet spot when it comes to a laptop nowadays. It is performant, it is lightweight, it has very good features, it's amazing. I think it would be like the perfect thin laptop at this time and point. I really do think that right now, given this time and point, given this current market and all of the situation that we're in, I think this might be the best bang for your buck, maybe the best bet at the moment. So at the moment with the M3 MacBook Air, I think it's one of the best times. Give me a sec, I'm getting a call. Yeah, what's up, man? How's it going? Yeah, I'm doing good. Do you mind if I call you back in a few? I'm shooting a video at the moment and I've got to get this done. So once I'm done, I'll just get back to you, all right? Okay, perfect, sounds good. All right, bye. Now I know you guys were looking at the case. It's pretty nice, I know. So I want to give a huge shout out to Angry Mayo for sponsoring the video.
They recently sent over one of their newest design for iPhone cases and it's really eye-catching. It provides not only flare but functionality as well. The corners are properly covered, making sure they absorb the impact if you were to drop your phone. My favorite part is that you can use MagSafe accessories with this case despite the unique design. You can use a MagSafe wallet, the magnet on the back has some decent grip, holds up a good amount of weight. You can also use a power bank, which I found myself using a lot lately and it works really well, and I gotta admit, it looks pretty good with the case. It's a good combo. They have other items like fast chargers that are really cool and unique. They come in this very neat packaging. The one I have here supports up to 35 watts of fast charging, which has been great for charging my iPhone, and it specifically has been good for my MacBook Air since the default power brick of the MacBook Air is also 35 watts. The cool thing about this charger though is that it lights up when in use, so I gotta admit that's really nice. Cool attention to detail, I gotta love it. They also have cables that support up to 60 watts charging and have magnetic tips. If you wanted to wrap up the cable and tuck it away neatly, you could do so, which is something super useful for me. I like to keep things minimal and clean. This has been a lifesaver. If you guys are interested in these products, make sure to check out the link in the description down below. Once again, thank you Angry Mayo for sending over these products and for sponsoring the video.
So in regards to upgrading or not, I really do feel that if you've had any of these machines, so maybe you have the last one, the M2, then don't even think about upgrading. It's not worth it. It's not that much of a leap. So maybe if you had the M1 MacBook Air, which is the previous generation before they started adding this new like square flat form factor, so if you had the M1, then I would probably say it is a pretty good time to upgrade. The M3 is very powerful and I'll get into that a little bit later in the video and talk about performance. But overall, kind of like a quick overview on the machine, I definitely do feel like it is a good time and point to upgrade. Now, with all that being said, I want to jump into the first thing that jumped into my eye, and that's very much the battery life. I really was impressed. I do think that the bigger models, you know, naturally on paper, they will always give you a better battery if you have a bigger machine because they can just physically fit a better battery. It's nothing new, nothing crazy, but I really do have to say that I was impressed. I do think that overall during my time using this machine, there's been multiple times where I've been multitasking. So whether I've been like scrolling on the internet, listening to some music, and maybe having some emails in the background and kind of just like multitasking a bunch of windows here and there. Also, another thing, I am a pretty avid user of Google Chrome. It's kind of like my default browser, so I do use that on a lot of my machines, and Google Chrome eats up your battery, especially on portable laptops. I don't know if you guys were aware of that, but that's just like a little insight. Try to avoid Google Chrome. I'm not saying don't use it, but it is very battery consuming. It's very heavy on RAM as well. So I do use Google Chrome regardless. and I actually was a perfect opportunity for me to test out the computer, and I don't know, it just hold up really well. The battery life was kind of impressive. I found myself only needing to charge a laptop every other day, and that's really good considering that my M1 Pro MacBook Pro has a bit of age. I've been using it and it is a little bit more powerful, so it does require more juice in certain applications in order to perform. So I do have to say that in contrast, maybe if you were looking for something that has power, but then again, not too much power, then I would definitely stick with the MacBook Air, a great in-between option. So sure, if we were to look at all of the features that it doesn't have or that it does have, you know, you'd be making a little list, and ultimately you'd come to the conclusion that the MacBook Pro series of the lineup is better. Sure, they're giving you a little bit more, and I understand. But the MacBook Air also feels really premium. I definitely do believe that in this time and point, this current model, this current design, this current chipset offers amazing power for a pretty decent price. Now, sure, these have gone up a little bit in pricing. I'm not gonna lie, I got mine for around $2,500 here in Canada, and it is an upgraded version. So this one has 16 gigs of RAM with 512 SSD gigabytes of storage, and it has the M3 chip, obviously the new main selling point, and it is in that 15-inch form factor, which I actually really like. I think this is a kind of like sweet spot laptop. Now, I do have to admit that it was a bit of an adjustment getting used to a bigger screen like this. I've never really had a big laptop. I've always had, like, my previous MacBook was 13-inch. The one I have now, the MacBook Pro with the M1 Pro, has a 14-inch screen, and this one has a 15-inch. A slight adjustment there on my behalf, but I do have to admit that once you get used to the new screen, or if you are looking to get a new screen, you're gonna instantly enjoy this bigger display. It is very nice for media consumption. It is nice for working. It's nice for multitasking. Sometimes you want to have a tab on the left, maybe you want to have a tab on the right. It's really good to mix and match. It's just kind of like the perfect in between. It's also amazing if you want to have this as your main machine and kind of hook it up to a monitor. That's also an option that you guys can do. It has the classic ports, and it has an auxiliary jack on the right hand side, and then it has, obviously the two USB-C ports and the charging port. So it's very minimal in its design. The speakers actually have disappeared from the front. They're really tucked in, like, at the bottom of the screen. It is nice, it's clean, it's simple. Now the speakers are pretty impressive. I've got to be honest, I don't really listen to music on the speakers of my laptop. Now, with all that said, I think the new performance on the M3 is rather consistent. It is impressive. I would definitely recommend you to get more gigs of RAM. That is something it's very hard for me now to recommend 8 gigs of RAM. I remember when I first reviewed the first generation of this new lineup of MacBooks with the M2, I had the M2 MacBook Air, and it had 8 gigs of RAM, and I had a bit of issues in the beginning. It was running kind of slow. There were some apps that just took a lot of time to open, and I found it rather inconvenient and rather unusual, because obviously you're getting a new chip, you're supposed to be expecting the best performance, and it just wasn't living up to that. So I would definitely recommend getting at least 16 gigs of RAM. Maybe you don't want to upgrade the base storage, and that's totally fine, because we all know that Apple charges a ridiculous amount for upgrading the internal storage on your machine. Sure, it's nice to have that internal storage, it's great, and it avoids you to get external SSDs or an external hard drive to kind of carry around. It's not the most worth it and the most valuable option for you guys, because I'm telling you, it's going to run you a lot of money. The second you start adding more storage, more internal storage for that matter, into one of these machines, it's going to run up the bill really quickly. So I would stay away from that. Focus mainly on getting more RAM. That's going to last you a long time, and the more you upgrade the specs on your machine from the get-go, sure, you're going to be paying more, but it is going to be future-proof, and that's something that I always stick by and always stand by. Now, there's another thing I want to touch upon in regards to this machine. They have announced that it was going to have a new layer of coating that was supposed to be rather more resistant to fingerprints, more resistant to kind of like dirt and stain, and honestly, after using it for the last 2 weeks, it's not all that good. It still piles up, especially this midnight colorway, which is the nicer one in my opinion, but it also is kind of a hit or miss. You either suck it up and you live with the fingerprints and you have a nice looking machine in terms of like the colorway, but it's not all that good. It still has that same issue with the fingerprints. The second you start manipulating the computer a little bit, you use it, open it a couple times, travel with it, maybe put it in your backpack, go to school, go to some coffee shop or whatever, at the end of the week, you will have a very dirty laptop. So if you don't mind cleaning it all the time, then sure, I would definitely recommend. This is the nicest color out of all of them. But if you don't like the Fingerprints. I would definitely stick with the lighter color. So Starlight is a good one. Very, very subtle. It's a nice, clean champagne color, and it very much hides all the fingerprints. The light silver, the classic silver, is also a great option. Super minimal, simplistic. It holds up over time. It's not kind of like a trendy piece. It's a very classic color, and I actually really like the light silver one. Coating on the MacBook, it is a little bit better, but it's not great, and it's not fantastic yet. They have some work to do, and that's okay, because there'll probably be an endless amount of generations of the M3 MacBook Air that will follow in the coming months. Now, there's only so much I can talk about and review on this machine, because it is very similar to its last generation, which was the M2 15-inch MacBook Air. The big takeaway is obviously the big screen, the big battery, and that's something that, if you were to ask me what I think is the best selling point about this, is definitely the bigger screen and the bigger battery. Sure, you're gonna get that performance with the 13-inch as well. You're gonna get a little less battery life. So ultimately, I would have to recommend, this would probably be my laptop of choice for 2024. Specifications with 16 gigs of RAM, 512 SSD. If you're not willing to drop that extra money or that extra cash on SSD internal storage, then I would definitely say keep your money and go and buy an external SSD. It's gonna save you a lot of money. It's super worth it, and they're super fast. They get the job done. It's just gonna be, you know, you're gonna have to plug it in. It'll be on the outside of your laptop, but there's fixes for that as well. But I really wanna know, what do you guys think about the M3 MacBook Air? Do you think Apple is dropping these a little bit too quickly, one after the other? I really have to admit that the last drop that they had with the MacBooks, it was the MacBook Pro, and they had the M3 Pro and the M3 Max with the regular M3 chip on the MacBook Pro. I think that was a nice little in between, kind of nice refresh to the MacBook Pro lineup. I don't necessarily see how we needed just yet the M3 MacBook Air. It is nice for anyone who was looking into buying a MacBook Air. Then I guess this might be a good time for you to jump the gun. Let me know what you think about the M3 MacBook Air in the comment section down below. Is this the sweet spot? I know it's not the most affordable one, and I know it is a pricey machine. This thing, brand new as I got it, is $2,500 here in Canada, so it will run you some money. Unfortunately, this is kind of the situation we are in right now with the economy. Now, let me know if you've enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and leave a like. Make sure you don't forget to subscribe. We're on the road to 10K. We're getting there really quick. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think about the laptop in the comment section down below. Let's get a conversation started. With all that being said, I will catch you guys on the next one. So I wish you the best of luck in everything you do. I'll see you on the next one. Deuces.